Hi, welcome to today's Change Ignition podcast. Today, I'm really excited to be speaking with Paul Gibbons. So Charlotte and I are going to be having a conversation with Paul. And Paul is an author, speaker and consultant. His beat is helping business leaders use science and philosophy to make better strategic decisions, implement change, innovate, change culture, and create workplaces where talent flourishes. His most recent book, The Science of Organizational Change, has been hailed as the most important book on change in 15 years. Between writing projects, he consults, coaches, and speaks with businesses such as Microsoft, Google, HSBC, KPMG, and Comcast. So today's topic is the future of change. So welcome, Paul.
Hello. I've got to remember that you're recording video, so I was making funny faces at Charlotte while we were doing it, so I won't do that anymore. When I hear people reading my bio, I always think how this surreal experience. It's all factual or anything like that. But it almost sounds to me like it ought to be someone else. But anyway,
it's you.
Here. I'm in the Rockies, by the way. I'm in Colorado. I don't know if you know. I'm about 4 kilometers from the Rocky Mountains.
Fantastic.
So America is flat as a pancake from here all the way until you get to the Appalachian Mountains on the East Coast. So about 2,500 miles of the most unbelievably flat country in the world. And all of a sudden there's this big gash in the earth right behind me. And the Rockies go on for 800 kilometers to the west till you get to California almost.
Yeah.
So that's right now.
Fantastic.
And we're in sunny Perth in Western Australia, so on the edge of the Indian Ocean.
Very cool. Very cool. I want to come out and play with you guys sometime. Anyway, that'll be nice.
Fantastic.
So, Paul, one of the topics that's certainly really current in Australia is the future of change management. And I know you've got a view on this. Having read your book, you put forward some really great ideas. So tell us more about the future of change management.
I've kind of said provocatively in the book that change management, ought to be euthanized. Oh, it's too bit of a drama to say. So I don't want to put anybody out of a job, because obviously that doesn't mean all of a sudden that businesses are super good at changing. Ha ha ha. No, we have not arrived there. I mean, I think it was unheard of. Change management was more or less unheard of in the early 1990s when I first became a consultant. They were doing organization development stuff in the 60s, national training laboratories and all that stuff, in the Tavistock Institute in England, and some very rich established things. But change management is newish, and it was a good thing when it came, because the reason I got into it was we used to do strategy projects, and they didn't do anything. I mean, they just say, "Oh, this is brilliant. Thank you very much for your recommendations. We'll take it under consideration." And then, they used to sign the checks, and we'd bugger off, and they'd take the report and, I don't know, holy water on it or something, and nothing would happen. I was really disappointed. I was really amazed. Because in my naivete, and I think my naivete is representative of a lot of senior sort of rational business dudes, was that if you had good enough reasons, a good enough business case, a good enough economic justification, everything would fall into line, and the change would just kind of, slot in. All the bits and the pieces would come together. So that doesn't happen. So here we are about two and a half decades later, and there's a relatively well-developed canon of change management tools. There's lots, tens of thousands of people on LinkedIn talking about change management, dozens and dozens of very, very good books. It doesn't not so good. So we have developed some robust ideas about what you need to do to align the people side of organization. And some of those are inherited from our brethren from National Training Laboratories and the Tavistock Institute and Group Dynamics and all of that. And then some of them are from the management consultant project management phase. We've kind of swept the kind of people side of project management slightly under our canon, stakeholder management. So there's a robust canon there. Anyway, and so if you want to cast change management in a very blunt oversimplistic way. You want to, align the people in the organization. You want them motivated. You want them to understand the change. You want them to understand the big picture. You want them to be able to motivate their people. You want to resolve conflict within stakeholders. You want to decide what the new culture ought to be in the organization. You want to communicate the change in both ways. So these are the family of things you want to do. And then as I was writing the book, I thought to myself, bloody hell, isn't that what like a good leader? If you imagine like in your mind, like the best leader you can imagine, right? I mean, the best. When a big change, if he's leading change locally, some big change from above, frequently change managers will get brought in. I used to, this was my change management, where you come in and sprinkle some pixie dust on us because, people are leaving, people are upset. We're not getting the work done. We're not getting the technical requirements done. This group won't talk to that group. We're 3 weeks behind and it looks like it's going to be, can you come in, Mr. Change Person, and do something about all that people guff that's going on? And it just strikes me that in a perfect world, if you had a perfect leader, they'd be a hell of a lot better at doing that than they now are. Is they would understand the big picture and they would make sense of it for their people. And they would communicate how their people were doing the change upward. And they would inspire and motivate and align. And if people were recalcitrant or difficult or finding it difficult emotionally, they'd have some kind of skills to help people adjust and make sense of things. And if there was a conflict between how the change hit their department and other departments, well, they'd be skillful in having those fierce conversations with one another and all that. So this picture, this is a fantasy, of course, of some guy really super duper good. Well, I've met some people who are pretty bloody good, we wouldn't have so much work to do, right? I mean, so that was my claim that it ought to be uninvented. That really we were better at educating leaders for doing the stuff that they really do day in and day out. And so you have the Harvard Business School, the Harvard MBA, and as I was writing the book, I was saying, we don't really teach business people the things that they really do day in and day out. Now I started with the Harvard MBA, and they have I think 11 standard modules, a 2-year MBA, $100,000. I don't know what they charge for it, a lot. And 11, and then they've got a bunch of electives. There's 100 electives. I think one of them has the word change in it. Out of 100. So you think, well, Mr. Manager, Mrs. Manager, 45 years old, relatively senior, some sort of vice presidential thing. What are the biggest headaches they have to deal with? And almost always, if it's not 80% of their job, it's 80% of their headaches is dealing with change of one kind or another, from above, from below, from sideways. Their people are initiating, they're initiating, someone above, someone from so is that really represented in the business school curriculum? Absolutely not. It's represented specialist curricula, like you've done a master's in change management, and we haven't talked, Rob, but you'll have advanced kind of knowledge and fields such as this. So why are we teaching this to people who are line managers? Because that's the stuff that they have to do. So that's my future of change management. That's part of the spiel, I think. And I think then the thing that we haven't done as a world is figured out how to change behaviors properly yet. And so there's good stuff from lots of different disciplines that's not picked up by OD. And our assumption in OD tends to be, because we come from a tradition of humanistic psychology from the 1960s, which is non-coercive and it's not parental and it's not authoritarian, person-centered, Rogerian counseling, right? That's our background. So that's the thing. So God forbid we should tell people what to do. And if you're ever, done Rogerian or trained in Gestalt or something like that, you would never really, you can do it. It's one of the 5 interventions you can make. But anyway, let's say what you would do is normally, in sense, change hearts and minds. So you'd look with, that was Alexa talking to me. You know that, just whispering sweet nothings in my ear. I'll be with you in a moment, darling. Where was I before I distracted myself with that? So we have
the humanistic psychology. That's what we're taught, not to tell people what to do.
And so who's heard change your insides to change your outsides? Well, we all right? That's what I was taught in psychology. That's what I was taught in lots of my personal growth stuff. Is you change your, if you know, you want to change your outside world and your environment, your behaviors, you get your head right. You get your head in the game. And that's insufficient. I think it's insufficient. I don't even think it's necessary. And I definitely don't think it's sufficient. And why do I say it's not necessary? Is frequently you can act your way into a new way of thinking. Act your way. So change your behaviors, and your thoughts and feelings and attitudes and beliefs will follow that.
Yeah.
And I think we're in an undiscovered country, because I don't think the world yet, I mean, I've written an article recently, not recently, 10, 12 years ago, on the body in leadership, which says that at its core is that a lot of what leaders have to do is in the domain of a body. And without launching into that, it's how do you get behaviors, how do you lead with the body? How do you put your body in the right conversations and have thoughts and feelings? So, for example, habit change. You know, I look at people out running when I lived in the Midwest of America. It's 30 degrees below and it's a blizzard. I'll see some, excuse my language, bastard out running. What in the hell are they? What are they thinking? But the point is, you know what? They're not thinking. They're not thinking. They're out running. So in a way, this internal apparatus is not getting in the way of what's a habit for them and why they're running. This is a habit. So I think in the change world, I don't think we thought enough about habits. And I think there's some good stuff we're learning about habit change. There's some good stuff we're learning about nudges. So the behavioral insights team from England. So there's lots of good stuff. And I think as change management experts, because whatever, even if we were to get rid of that part of our job, which is about sprinkling the change pixie dust on projects, a lot of what we then would be doing is skills transfer to the people we would be educating. We'd be educating managers and leaders in the dark arts of change management. That thing we always talk about in projects, knowledge transfer, it really doesn't happen. It never happens. But anyway, so that's two things. Anyway, I hope that's not a thing. Let me I don't think I've taken a breath in 15 minutes. So what do you think of those?
So first of all, Paul, in all of your writing, the thing that strikes me, and I've just been reading your introductory chapter to Truth Wars, which is your book that's coming out in January, which is fantastic. All that comes through is your passion and your desire to actually bring a different perspective on this whole change conversation. And just picking up on a couple of things that you mentioned there, which definitely inspired me, this whole thing around neo-behaviorism and nudges, because that then actually takes change from that pixie dust into more of the, scientific. So actually we do understand a lot more about what helps people change, but we need to get away from this sort of pixie dust mentality that's actually got in our way of progressing.
Yes. And I think change, one of the things I think I say that's really very wise is you don't want to ignore the old behaviorism was indifferent to what people thought and felt. And so you try to change behavior with carrots and sticks. And we still do that today in organizations and with our children and with criminals and all of that. And unfortunately, that's a very old legacy. And it's unfortunate because one of my favorite books that if you haven't read this, jot it down. It's called Punished by Rewards. A marvelous book, which talks not about how sanctions, we know that punishment doesn't work. We know that punishment's coercive and that punishment has adverse consequences. But we think, we'll just use praise or gold stars or financial incentives.
Yeah.
And in fact, according to Alfie Cohen, who wrote that book, those are just as harmful and just as ineffective in the long run. So we have to need a world between that world of hard behaviorism, old behaviorism, and the world of let's change hearts and minds and pray to God that they change their behaviors. We need something in between. And I think there is stuff in between. But I think we're in new territory. And I think practitioners like you both are out trying stuff out, trying out some of the stuff, checklists, trying out nudges, trying out, and so, and that's it, trying out habit change, trying out, let's make some micro change to habits. What could we do? What micro habit could we change around here that might unlock something,
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, lovely. Charlotte, what do you think?
No, I was just reflecting on that. Is one of the things is that there's this common thing, change management, who is actually in itself refusing to change. So you know, we've come across a few people who are very much in that. No, we need a solid plan, and we need to follow that plan in that stepped process, and we need to just do communications, and we just need to do training, and we'll be all right because we've ticked all those boxes, and we don't actually really need to change because we're actually making progress. And I think it's that, where are we making progress? Because there may be small pieces of what you call success, but very often, you know, we talk about habits and organizational habits, that actually the organization just goes back to the old habit. You might introduce a new piece of software or new processes or restructure, but the habits are still within the organization. And unless you look at those, you might have that new technology or that new team, but the organization, the system that it is with its habits, will just shift back to what it's comfortable with.
Yeah. As Peter saying, he said, the harder you push at the system, the harder it pushes back. I think it was Peter had said that. That's certainly quoted. Yeah, I don't think, I mean, that's another thing that I would waive. If I could have senior leaders learn one thing, the strategist types. I haven't learned two things. I haven't learned conflict facilitation skills. I haven't learned this systems thinking. I just think even just causal loop diagrams will help them with problem solving so much better than it's just do much better job than they now do at understanding cause and effect. And when you pull a lever in business, or in society, when you intervene in the system, you have a causal model in your mind of what pulling that lever will do. And obviously, sometimes it's oversimplistic. I gave the example of a call center, and I just think this is mind-numbingly stupid. But as soon as there's a sort of performance shortfall in a call center, it usually is something like blame the people. It's not the systems, it's not the marketing, it's not the product, it's not the pricing, it's not the management behavior. You know, if I ask people, list all the things that could be causing this call center to perform like crap, and the first 20 things people name are to do with the individual, motivation or skills or education or bad attitudes or bad beliefs or all this kind of stuff. Just blame the folks. And then the change manager or the trainer will be brought in. Can you motivate my people? Or let's pay them more, because that will motivate them more. But you're assuming that the causal in the system, the pin that will unlock that stuck system that's performing crap, is something to do with personal motivation or personal attitudes. So it could be any number of 30 things. But the most convenient thing for you as a boss is to say, well, it's them. And you're a trainer. So can you come in and fix them with? And sometimes they're willing to spend big money. Sometimes it'll be $500,000, you know? And, you know, I had a teacher when I started learning some of this stuff back in 1995, and God, he was good. And he said, someone had asked us to do just that very thing. And he said, you know, we're colluding here. I said, what do you mean? What do you mean, mate? It's a lot of money. And he said, you know, this guy's got an idea that the only thing that's the problem is people are lazy sacks of shit. And I'm not sure he's right. And we met with him often enough to know that his behavior was certainly one of the things that was awry in the system. But, you know, it was a lot of money. I can't remember whether we did it or not. So just having people understand cause and effect, that's a cognitive bias called the fundamental attribution error. I mean, you know, if you're trained in psychology, you hear about fundamental attribution error, but I don't know that many change people could rattle off, you know, what are the 10 most important cognitive biases yet, because it's just not found its way into the canon. So anyway, those are some random thoughts.
So that does go to the point about the future of change management, doesn't it? Because the model at the moment, as you say, is sort of a mixture of humanistic psychology and project management. And actually what your book did for me, it repositioned it as more around the sort of the systems thinking, which I was used to, certainly in business improvement terms. And Deming obviously talks about systems a lot. And also understanding that sort of behavioural economics, that neo-behaviorism piece. So that suggests to me that change managers or people who are in the change space in the future really should be looking to reskill themselves and learn stuff in that area, because that's actually going to serve them better than the old stuff over here.
Yeah, well, or better, or as well as.
Yeah.
You've presumably had some young spark come up to you and say, I want to do change management. How can I learn to be a change manager? Is there a 6-week program?
Yeah.
Can I get certified?
No, you do a master's in organizational behavior, and then you should do a 2-year certification in counseling, and then master's in family therapy and system dynamics. I don't know. It's a lot of stuff. Facilitation. I mean, it's a long list.
Yeah.
I think. And not everybody has all of it. For sure. Well, I certainly bloody don't. So, anyway, yeah. So the strategy part of it. You want to talk about the strategy part of it?
Yeah, because you do talk about that in the book. You say, and again, it was like music to my ears, because you talk about really there is a strategy, the business strategy, and then the tactics that you employ to bring about the change. So to talk about change strategy is a bit of a sort of a misdirection.
Yeah. God, you've read the book thoroughly. Holy cow. Yeah. There's some sort of level in the middle layer. One of the guys I know who's really experienced is it's sort of like almost like a PMO for the whole business. And in Agile, actually, to their credit, they have something called Scaled Agile frameworks. Something like what I have in mind, but there's some layer which coordinates across the organization or across the business unit or across the relative chunk or something like that, all of the different projects, and looks at the interlap and the overlaps and dependencies and all of that kind of stuff. You'll be able to assess the change load. So, I mean, I think that's what I think of as straight change strategy, is how the big pieces of the puzzle fit together. And then so often I've seen, and I'm sure you have also, is projects that if they don't directly conflict, they nick resources from one another, or slightly conflicting, or you know, marketing is running something and sales or finance is running something else. And they don't quite conflict, but neither do they really align very well. It's just, they're just hemorrhaging money. I mean, they're just pissing money away and things like that. So there was this woman I met at a party. It's one of these things. It was a social gathering in England. She worked for HP, and she'd been called on the carpet because she'd been told to make 2,500 people redundant. She has some senior job. I don't know what she was, COO, CEO. I can't remember her name. Actually, Charlotte, I should look. I can't remember her name anymore. Anyway, she was HP, and she had to make 25 people redundant. And so she did. And then someone came over from California and said, "What in blazes is going on? Our headcount costs are skyrocketing." And she said, "Well, we've got all this change happening. We've got this customer service initiative and this marketing initiative and all this kind of stuff. You know what people are doing? They're hiring contractors. Chris, you make them hire everybody." That's what the room. And I thought that's a really funny tale about, like, completely, like, one hand, just like I have no idea what's happening. So I thought that was interesting, if not that unusual a tale. So that's the strange change strategy piece, as I imagine it.
So actually, Paul, that also sort of links into a bit around the alignment piece, because talking about having that bigger picture view of what's happening in the organization can actually then maybe help that piece around aligning. Because as you said, then if you've got projects that are working and actually maybe working against each other, or they might not be necessarily actually conflicting, but they're causing enough dissonance between different parts of the organization that obviously the alignment, you won't get people aligned with that, because you're going to have, you know, particularly traditional organization where you do have the silos and the different warring factions potentially, then that's a big challenge. So maybe what I'm hearing is that if you step it up a level and have a much more big picture view of the changes that are happening in your organization, and then you can start to think about what are the consequences also from a systems perspective that are happening, then maybe that's one way of actually helping with that alignment piece.
Yeah, I mean, definitely it's a possibility. Although, you know, I'm just going to second guess. I mean, you said it much better than I said it. But one of the things that people do a lot is to fix a systemic problem. It happens more in the public sector. Is they'll create a structure, a unit, a committee, a working group, a department, or something or other, which is supposed to make bits fit together that aren't working below. So if someone said that to me as a challenge to my idea, I'd say, you know, that could be fair cop gov. But I can't see another way. I can't see another way of handling the complexity of all that's going on in an organization without having someone, in a sense, just having a sight of the whole thing. And the board doesn't, and the executive team doesn't. I mean, they don't know that there's, you know, they don't know what's going on in HR. I mean, you know, they'll know a couple of things. They don't know what's going on in, you know, Europe, if they're American, or Africa, the African, they don't know what's going on over there. And the other thing is, I don't think most businesses track how much they spend on change and consultants and stuff and what their ROI is. So I've never seen any business produce like, here's a list of all the changes that we did in 2016. These are all the projects birthed all over the organization, and this is how they fared. Like this bunch over here did pretty good. Then the margin of error, they were great. And this bunch over here, wow, this group down here sucked. And this group down here, like, made things worse. You know, I would love to see that. And then how much do we spend on them and who did them? I don't know. And what could we learn? What can our organization learn? Because right now, you can learn generalities from the literature on change management about what works. But I think it'd be more interesting to know specifically what works in your organization, what's actually in the particularity of your business, what sorts of changes seem to do well and what seem to don't. And, you know, is it due to size of project or scale of project or who leads it, or it's cross-functional, cross-discipline, or multi-region, or, you know, if you have how much you invest in this or how much you invest in that. Try and get some handle on what we do well and what we do well, because I don't think anybody has the faintest idea. I really don't. You know, I've been pretty high in a bunch of businesses, so I haven't really looked. I haven't always been asked to look under the what's the expression? I'm like, under the carpet or under the bed skirts or whatever it is, to see, or something like that. But talking to them, my sense is they have no bloody idea about what's going on and how it's doing. I mean, obviously they know how the $100 million SAP implementation is going. But I'm talking about the whole thing.
Yeah. So what do you think stops organizations from doing that? Or what is it that means they aren't doing that?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. Why would I not want to? Why would I not want to know? I mean, who owns the whole, I guess, is the question. I mean, well, it should be the board and the senior leadership team. I mean, who's accountable for the whole? Why did that chief operating officer from HP go parachuting into London? Why didn't he know that one unintended consequence of firing 2,500 people and your headcount costs go up? I mean, he must have had kittens. And how could he have known? Is the question. It's a fine question, you know, Charlotte. I don't have a ready answer. What would be in the way of people wanting to know or wanting to have that kind of discipline? I mean, there's a scaled agile framework thing going on at Comcast down the road. A very, very able woman running it. My impression she's very, very able, but she's more junior than the big IT dudes, and they are dudes. And she's trying to implement something like Scaled Agile Framework Light, which requires accountability in a way from all of the, or at least transparency for what's going on in the business. And they kind of fight back. It's kind of interesting. She's having a lot of trouble getting them to be transparent about what they're doing and what they're not doing, and what they're committed to and what they're not committed to, and what their deadlines are and what their deadlines aren't, and what resources they're using and what resources they aren't using. She's having trouble getting that kind of transparency, because that's what Scaled Agile Framework does, is it tries to take all this agile stuff that's going on and center it all. She's having trouble. So
could that be about the system? You're challenging the system, and as you said, the system always fights back and it self-normalizes.
Well, why would some 45-year-old IT project manager dude want to tell a 32-year-old woman in the head office, what he's doing and when he's delivering and buying what resource they need and how he's doing and what the dependency does? I mean, no interest.
Exactly.
I'd rather be left alone.
Yeah.
Really, to be honest.
I can understand that.
Totally understand. But that's what she's trying to do, is try to knit together the whole there, bless her. Yeah, God. She's
poking the system.
Yeah, she's having a little poke, that's for sure. And what she needs to do that is, of course, she doesn't have the authority. I mean, she's very technically able, she's a 32-year-old woman, and these are all, the typical 45-year-old IT bloke kind of dudes. They're vice presidents of Comcast, whatever that means, or whatever. I mean, so they think a lot of themselves. I mean, they're very nice people. I don't want to say they're particularly accurate, but they've risen to certain things, so they're not, used to thinking. Of course, for her to get the information that she requires to do the job she requires to do, requires her boss to come in and, in a sense, I'll say this, I go to inverted commas, kick some arse, because that's not actually probably what would work. So he this is kind of interesting, because he wants to delegate. So he wants, in a sense, the less he knows about people, the more autonomous they are, the more freedom they have, the more liberty they have, the more, the less he's bothered with the day-to-day minutia of their things. He just wants results, which is not, an unusual thing for a leader to want, right? I don't want to hear too much of the noise going on here. Yeah. Leave me alone. Give me the big picture. If you can explain in 30 seconds, that's good. And so, but he wasn't getting what he wanted in terms of results. So they go, okay, well, I don't need to know, but I really don't want to go and get down into bloody conflicts myself with people, right? And start having, I'm the guy's coach. So, dude, why don't you have like half hour with everybody every week, or 45 minutes with everybody every week? And, he simply refuses. Sometimes he's busy. Anyway, she was brought in to give him the kind of transparency and visibility of his own organization that he doesn't now have. But it's funny, because he would have, if he was having 45-minute conversations with everybody, transparency and visibility. But she's brought her in to try and give him transparency and visibility and accountability from his team. Of course, they're telling her to piss off. And what they really need, ironically, is for him to have those 45 minutes, at least. So it's a solution to the problem is he's not being sufficiently accountable for the team results, not really paying enough attention to what they're doing, to the interdependencies and the conflicts and everything like that. He's hired someone to do it, but the problem hasn't gone away. And it's not in a hurry to go away either. So I hope that's not too long-winded thing. I think I see you nodding it. It makes sense to you in some way, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, it brings someone else in to help solve the problem that's actually my problem that I need to solve. But I don't either feel comfortable or it's just not something that I want to do. So it's easier for me to bring someone else in to do that on my behalf, and I'll hopefully get the same result.
Yeah, I'd like to quit drinking. Will you come do it for me? Or something.
Yeah.
Kind of like that.
So Paul, it's been fantastic talking to you. For people who are listening, how can they get hold of you? How can they find out what you're up to? Where are the places they can go to connect with you?
Well, if people like it, we should do another one of these at the end of the summer in September or something. I have another chinwag. That'd be fun. I've enjoyed talking to you. It's been good. It's been a lot of fun. even though it's bloody 9 o'clock at night here.
It's got very dark. You've gone very dark.
Yes, can you see behind me now? Yeah. Very dark, very, very dark. The house is a mess. No, keep the house dark. So I'd like to do that. I want to invite people to go to paulgibbons.net.
Yep.
I love people to know when Truth Wars comes out, so they can evaluate whether it's the sort of book they might enjoy reading. I'm really excited about. It might be a stretch for me intellectually. I'm trying to sort of position myself as a public intellectual, politics, economics, psychology, the sort of nexus of all of that. And the world we need to worry about when we don't have a shared set of facts about how the world is, it's going to be pretty difficult for us to move forward. And so the president, for example, of America said crime rate's higher than it's ever been. Well, in fact, it's lower, all-time low, more or less, you know. And he says things with just casual disregard for what the truth might be. But I don't want to blame it all on him, because there's something in the system which allows him to be elected.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting thing. So if he got like 43 million people voted for him, despite his obvious character flaws, to some people are obvious, and his liberties with the truth. And so the reason, the aegis for the book is as well, I was walking around with this chap on Halloween night, October 31st, so that would have been a week before the election, and the kids were running away trick-or-treating in the distance. And I said, who are you going to vote for in the election, mate? You know, knowing he was kind of leaned the other way. And he said, well, I think it's really interesting that the Pope has endorsed Trump. And I said, oh, is that a fact? You know, dude, I tell you what, that sounds unlikely. Why don't you go fact check it? And he says, you can't fact check it. The fact checkers are all bent. And so that's really like, if the world really is like that, if it's really like that, how do we solve problems like global warming? Is the planet hot or is it cool? How do we solve problems like the spread of disease? Is vaccination good for you or bad for you or whatever? How do we, you know, tackle the sugar and high fructose corn syrup? How do we agree about genetically modified foods? How do we agree, you know, I mean, all of these things have some basis in science. It's not the science is always right. We don't really have anything better. And so that's really my passion, is that what do we do about this? And that's why I'm going to have a go at writing Truth Wars. So that's me. That's my bit.
Yeah, brilliant.
And there is a chapter on your website that people can read as a tempter.
Yep.
Fantastic. So yeah, we'll definitely.
I've been studying tobacco, so I know we want to stop. I've been studying tobacco. So 500,000 people die a year from tobacco, and about 150 million people have died this over the last 50 years from tobacco. 500,000 a year die in the United States. So it kills millions worldwide. Millions.
Yeah.
Millions of people. Terrorism, few thousands. It's grotesque, it's ugly, it's horrible. It's in the thousands. Tobacco in the millions.
Yeah.
So if you had I've been doing thought experiments thinking of that. If there was a food on the grocery store shelf next to the orange juice that killed millions of people of cancer, lung cancer, it wouldn't be on the shelves very long. No. I don't care. If it was a pharmaceutical product, say it did something for obesity or some other chronic condition that's very hard, Alzheimer's, but it gave millions of people cancer, well, it wouldn't be on the market. So nothing that gives millions of people cancer is tolerable, even if it does lots of good things. And so here we go. We've had hundreds of years. In 1964, there was a proclamation that cancer categorically was caused by cigarette smoking. And it's 50 years on and we've still not, you know, so, and it's an extraordinary thing if you think about it. Like, how does that, how do we create a world where that's possible? I mean, it's just not myself. So that's my Truth Wars spiel. I could go on and on. Sorry, I'm sorry about that.
I'm with you on that. I'm on the fructose front, and that, you know, the canes, you know, and the corn syrup, because, you know, that again, that is, you know, science is now showing how that is killing people. And putting huge stresses on healthcare systems, and also the devastation to families and everything like that, where it's in food, and what are we doing to allow that, because it is actually killing people.
It is. So so interesting stuff. So let's have more. I know I could go on and on and on, but anyway, it's really been great connecting with you for the first time, Charlotte, and we've chatted a bit. But.
We have, yes, and I'm sure we'll chat even more, and definitely look forward to doing this again later on in the year.
All right, push stop before I say anything else.
Thanks very much. That's Paul Gibbons. Thank you for joining us today.